Okay, welcome back everybody. We are going to put together the July Club Q kit, one of the kits. And the one that we're working on today is called Beautiful Summertime. The item number is DP1448, and the powder puff chalking inks that are suggested are Jade, Fall Leaves, and Desert Sun. I have a couple of those, but I'm also going to just grab from my stash and use a few others as well. I also have Baja Blue, and I have Fall Leaves, and I have Summer Days that I will be using. So totally up to you what you want to chalk. And if you want to, throughout this, just stop, push pause, take time to chalk things up any color you want, any of the pieces, and then just push play. That is the great thing about having instructions on video, is that you can go at your own pace, stop and go as you need to. And as always, I am going to start with the cutting instructions. There is a cutting diagram that looks like this, and it has one of the cutting diagrams on the other side of it. So go ahead and grab that, and then we will go grab the papers that coordinate with this so that we can do all the cutting first. So I'm going to move the sample out of the way, and I will grab the 12 by 12 dotted. It's kind of a bluish green, kind of a minty color. I grab that one. It has this on the other side. So that one will be cutting. Then the 12 by 12 yellow. And this is like a 3.5 or 3.25, 3 3/4 by 12. So this little strip here too. So we'll cut that one. Actually, I'll cut that one first. I'm going to move in my trimmer. And I always just set this right next to me so I can see what it is that I'm following. I'm going to cut, this is already at 3 3/4 across. I'm going to cut 2 squares at 3 3/4, 3 3/4, and then we'll do this little piece. So go ahead and put this in at 3 3/4 and trim. 3 3/4 and trim. And then this last piece is going to be 3 by 4.5. So if you pull this down further, there's 4.5 is what is left over, and then we're going to turn it and cut at 3. So you have 3 by 4.5. Those little pieces of scrap. I know a lot of times we tell you don't throw your scraps away because we use the scraps a lot of times, but I will try and point out the ones that you can just throw away. Okay, so we have all these pieces. I'm going to set those aside. I'm going to work on the yellow 12 by 12, and I'm going to, you can trim these off if you want to, but this one we don't really need to because we are just going to put this in at 9. We're going to cut a 9 by 9 square. So 9 by 9 square. And then with this piece that's left over, we want a 3 by 5. This one that's cut off the end, that is just extra, but that's a good size piece to use on another layout or with your extra paper pack that comes with Club Q. So if you want to save that, you can, but we won't be using it in this kit. This one, we want a 3 by 5, so it's already at 3, so we will turn it and cut, trim at 5 inches. This is also just leftover piece. Okay, then the last diagram, this one's a little bit trickier, but just follow my steps and I'll show you how to do it the easiest way. Okay, so we are going to put this in at 9.5 because we're going to do a 9.5 by 9.5 square. So 9.5 and trim. This is leftover extra we're not going to use. And then a 9.5 here. But this piece here we are going to cut something out of, so I will do that actually right now. So we have a 9.5 by 9.5. This is 2.5, and we need it 2.5 by 4. So you can see that strip that's left over is 2.5. We're just going to turn it and do by 4. This long piece is extra. You can set that aside. This one we will be using. Now, out of your 9.5, I know that we showed we're trying to conserve some paper here so that we're not putting in a bunch of extra stuff that you don't need. This is going to be covered up. So I'll show you where we use it. This 9.5 by 9.5 is just this skinny piece behind here. So we are going to cut something out of the middle of that. I hate to waste paper, so we are going to conserve this paper. Okay, so the easiest way to do, instead of doing exactly these measurements and getting 2 of those out of there, I'm just going to cut a big square out of the middle of it, and then we'll deal with that. So what I'm going to do, I'm just putting this in to 8.5 right here. So it's 1 inch in from over here, but we're putting in at 8.5. And then you put your trimmer to the 1 right here, and you pull it down to the 8.5. Okay? So you just start at the 1. You don't want to cut this entire strip off. You just start at the 1, so it's kind of inside your piece, and then you pull it down to 8.5, because we are just going to cut out this big center piece here. So don't pay attention to these little 2 pieces for now. Okay, so now we're going to turn it, 1 turn, and go to 8.5 again, and do the same thing. So you start at 1, push down, go all the way down to 8.5. Turn it, put it in at 8.5. Start this at 1, and it doesn't have to be exact. If it's a little bit off, it's okay, because we're going to cut something out of the middle of that. So you start at 1, go down to 8.5. And then turn it again, and you can see we're starting to cut just a square out of there. We just need to cut this piece. Turn it again to 8.5 over here. Oops. Start at the 1. So basically you just want to cut a big square out of the middle of that. And then we are going to use this for a little background piece later. Now, out of this piece, we are going to cut 2 3.5 by 3 3/4. Okay? So I am going to put it in at 3 3/4. Okay? We're at 3 3/4 and cut. This is just left over. And then we need 2 pieces at 3.5. So we turn this 3.5, move it in to 3.5, and you have your 2 pieces. And cutting that big piece out to begin with makes it way easier to kind of do your measurements for these smaller ones. Or you can cut out the smaller ones if you want to, if you can get the measurements right in there, that's totally fine. The ones that I say that are extra, I would set completely aside or out off your table, because there is a lot of extra good usable paper in this kit. And I don't want you to get it mixed up as you go because it's hard to find the ones that you actually need later. So go ahead and get those out of the way completely. The ones that you are using, I would sit right out in front of you so you can grab as we go. And the only other cutting that we are going to do right now is your background papers. So these two papers I'm going to put together and just cut the tabs off of. So put it in at 12 and just trim the tab off the bottom. So they're ready for background papers. And we'll get our diagram out of the way, get our trimmer out of the way, because I believe that is the only cut pieces. Let's see. Yeah, it looks like those are the only ones that are actually cut. So I'm going to move my trimmer. I'm going to lay out my background pieces, and feel free to put these in any orientation you would like, any direction. It doesn't really matter. And if you are trying to get the words to go a right direction, they're kind of all over the place. And plus, most of the words, the script on there is going to be covered, so it doesn't really matter. You just choose which way you like the papers. And it looks like on our actual instructions, we have them set up like this. But feel free to move those around if there's something that you like a little better. Make sure that these are in the screen for you. Okay. So the next thing that we're going to do before we start getting things onto the page, you probably have this stuff all punched out. I left it in just so I could show you which ones to layer up easily. Let's see. Okay, so on page 1, oops, I'm going to lay this piece out here just so you can see. It's easier to see. I'm going to use the back of this so you can see. Okay, the largest flower is going on page 1. One of the next size flowers on top of that. And you can see here what I'm doing. So it's this one layered under this one, and then one this size. And the flower next to it on that first page is a medium one with a smaller one, and then the smallest on top. Okay. And if you get any of these mixed up, it's really okay, because there's no exact way that these have to be. And then on page 2, we have the 2 medium ones left, and they each get layered with a smaller one. And I'm sorry if you hear my cat. She apparently needs some extra love today, so she's checking out to see what I'm doing here. Okay, and then the other pieces you can just punch out, put into a pile, so you can easily grab your lasers, your laser cuts as you go. And these little frames, they just get layered up like this. Oops, get that out of there. And we'll put some words behind here, but there's a backer and then a front for each of those. A backer and a front, and we'll get the words to go in there. Okay, so with the flowers, what you want to do is chalk up the edges however you would like. One thing that I would like to show you with the flowers, which makes it look really nice and have some extra dimension, is to just fold each petal. You can either chalk these first or fold them and then chalk them. But when you do this, it really makes it kind of lift off the page, and it doesn't have to be exactly down the middle. Just bent each petal. This really gives it some dimension and makes it kind of pop off the page. And on my sample, I actually did some different colors. So I just did the ends of each one with a different color. I used fall leaves on that one. I'm going to use jade on this next one. And it can be kind of messy because you are covering most of that up. And then I'm going to use, this one's Summer Days. I'm going to use a yellow on the top. And then put a little dot of glue, layer these up. And I would do that with all of your flowers. You can do these singly, or I'm folding them all together here. Layer your flowers together. You go ahead and chalk those up the colors that you would like. And then once you get all your flowers glued together, chalked up, ready to go, I'll show you how we did the buttons as well that go in the middle. This is just a really easy way for any flower, any shaped flower, to just bend the petals a little bit, and you can see it just has that extra little lift on there. Okay, so all your embellishments, we always try to pack them in a neat little bag for you so they're easy to find. But I love these wooden buttons because you can make them any color you would like. I'm actually going to use jade, so I'm just going to put my Powder Puff chalking ink out there, and then I'm going to just lightly run the top. You don't want to press all the way down because then it'll get in the center. I'm just going to rub it back and forth for a second, and it turns the outer ring whichever color you would like. And go ahead and glue that right in the middle of your flower. The next one is fall leaves. I'm going to do the same. I just love this technique because these wooden buttons are easy to match any page. I'll try Summer Days. My inks are looking a little messy. I don't know how the yellow will show up on this. We're going to find out. Oh, it's still pretty. I kind of like the darker colors, but the yellow still works. And then I have a Baja here that I accidentally got smashed into my orange, so it looks a little funny, but I'm going to do one in the Baja blue. Oops. If you want to smash it all the way in there, you can. I just like the look of it, just having just the ring. And then your flowers are done. So the two smaller ones I'm going to set off to the side of my second page. I'll put those on later. And the two bigger ones I'm going to set off to the side of my first page. And we will get started on layering onto this first page. Okay, so the 9.5 square that we cut out of the middle, this is going to go right in the center of page 1. And remember, oh, I set that on my ink. Remember to chalk these up as you go if you would like. This yellow looks really nice with like an orange around the edge. But if you're not wanting to add orange, you can always make it a brighter yellow around the edge, add some green. I'm going to put that spot down there so that it's hopefully just covered up. That goes right in the center there. And then we have our photo backers that go on top of that. The square orange ones are a little bit smaller. We were just trying to give it a kind of a different look here. And I would get these lined up before you glue anything down, but everything should be about 3/4 of an inch from the top, from the sides. The green ones are a little bit smaller on one side. So the shorter side, you can see it's a little shorter than that. That's the way that you need to put it onto your page. The orange goes right up under it. And you can see that goes up a little bit. We were just trying to offset things just a little here. Okay. Okay, so we actually have a couple more cuts to make. And I'm sorry I didn't mention this in the beginning. I normally trim these out to the words, and you will have a sheet of paper like this, and we're going to cut out the little banner pieces across the bottom and the photo backer here. I did cut out the words that are going to go behind the little brackets here, little frames. For the photo backer and the, let's see, mine needs to be cut down just a little bit here, but how I'm going to do it, just ignore that cut because my paper was a little bit bigger than 12 by 12. I am going to just cut across the top of here for this photo backer. And we're basically just going to go around. And then you'll see there's a little space in between. I'm going to move that over and cut there. So these that are left, there should be 3 with little dovetail banner ends. And we are going to cut right where there's a white space in between all of them. And if that white space is showing later, no worries, because we are going to chalk up the edges. Oh, my cutter needs, my blade needs changed. Okay, and then right in the middle here, I'm going to turn this around and cut this last one out. And if it does have a little white space, no worries, we can just chalk up the edge there. Make sure I get this in here. It's hard when it gets down to a skinny piece like this. And then once I have them all cut out, then I'm going to go back through and I'm going to do the little dove's tail. On each one. And you can see on this one, I actually have some white space on the sides here. I'm just going to chalk that up. I'm not even going to worry about it. You can trim some more off if you would like to. but I'm just going to cover it up with some chalk. Okay, and then I'm going to go back in and I'm going to trim this piece out. It's going to be used for a photo mat. Just trim it right at the edge there so that you end up with a 5x7. Okay, and like I mentioned, there might be a little white space. On your little banners here. So I'm just actually going to take, well, actually, I'm going to use this yellow, and I'm going to chalk up the edges. A little bit on the end. You can add 2 colors if you want. I'm going to do a little yellow, and then I'm going to add a little orange. This is fall leaves. Okay, once you get all 3 of those chalked up, there's 2 long ones, 2 and 1 short one. And on page 1, we are going to adhere one of the longest ones just across the bottom with just a little bit of the greenish blue dot showing. And you'll center that. Once you have that on there, then you can place your flowers. And make sure you have your photos in there like you want them before you glue your flowers down to your photo mat. And you can place your flowers where you would like them. And they might be in a different position for you depending on what pictures you use. And then you have 2 die cuts, white die cuts like this. Once you have your photos in place, I would just put a little bit of glue from your glue pen just in a few spots here, and then tuck that in where you would like it. I'm going to go down a little bit because that looks like it's going to cover up a lot of the photo. So you can see you want a photo here that isn't being covered up by the leaves, like maybe the face up here. You also can just trim off these leaves. So if you have a photo that you want to show the entire photo, just go ahead and trim those leaves off. You won't actually need them. This guy gets tucked right under here. And then your little brackets here. You put a little glue with your glue pen around here. Put your word behind it. Glue it to this one, or you can just use the brads because there is 2 brads in your little packet. And then once you have pictures in place, you can glue these down onto your page. Two brads, one on each end. And then your first page is complete. We're going to move to the second page. On your second page, so you can see here that we have some overlapping, they kind of look like tags in the corner here. You want to make sure before you glue these all the way down that you have your photos in there like you want them. My cat is extra chatty saying hi to you today. So I just let her out so that you don't have to listen to her through the whole video. Okay, so on page 2, what we're going to do is this one that we just cut out, we are actually going to layer with this piece here. So this is a 5 by 7, this is a 4.5 by 6.5, and it is going to go right on top of there. But before you glue this down to your page, we want to make sure that we don't put glue around this top edge and this right side here on the back, because we are going to tuck the flowers in behind that. So this goes in about 2 inches from the right and about 2.5 inches from the top. And again, you can place these anywhere you would like. Once you get photos in, you kind of can move it around so that it works best for your photo. If you glue this down to your page, just make sure you leave this part open, because we are going to tuck this piece right in behind it. And depending on where you put your photo mat, depends on how far you need to tuck it in so that it is still on the page. And you might want to try that before you glue all this down. And then what I would do is just pick up maybe the ends, put a couple glue dots on a few spots here on the leaves, and then just lay it back down. It doesn't have to be completely glued down. Once this gets into a page protector, it's going to be just fine. So you don't have to have glue everywhere, maybe just a few dots on the back of that. And then once you have that on, we have a smaller little banner piece that's going to go across the middle here. And then the second one is going to go across just below it. And what I did was I kept my papers next to each other so that I could see that this is going to line up about the same height as page 1. Okay, and once you have that on, we have a bracket here, a little frame. This, so make sure it lines up, because I think it only lines up one way, or maybe it doesn't. Let's see. Oh yeah, it fits either way, so it is square. Okay, so this, just a little adhesive around the back. This gets glued onto here. The rest of your brads go in the sides. And then this gets glued down to your page. And again, if you don't have a photo in there yet, excuse me, if you don't have a photo in there yet, just make sure that you don't put glue across the top of this one, because you'll want to be able to put a photo in there. Once you have that on, you can place your flowers. And then we just tucked some leaves in behind that. And again, I would just put just a little dot here and there, and then tuck that in, glue it down. With your banner pieces across the bottom, these just barely, so this is actually, let's see, I'm going to move this down just a little. You definitely don't have to do this, but I'm going to move mine down just a little bit, and I'm going to place these where I want them. This is another reason to not put adhesive at the top of your little bracket here, because you can tuck this in behind it if you want to. And your yellow photo piece. And these will probably have to be arranged a little bit according to whatever photos you use. But this is how I did it on our sample. So I tend to get things set up a little bit and then I want to go back and glue it all down. If you like to glue it as you go, totally fine, because there's no exact way to do it. If you get something in the wrong place, it's still going to look beautiful. Put your own touches on it, use your own colors, move things around so it works for your photos. But we hope you enjoyed this kit, and thank you so much for being a Club Q member. We hope you enjoy it this month, and our next month will be coming out soon. Thanks so much. Bye.